Hey folks, welcome back to the Toronto Marlies Insider. The Marlies announced on Friday that they wouldn't be extending the contracts for head coach Gregg Moore and his assistant coaches MacLean and John Snowden. The announcement came less than 10 minutes after the Leafs announced that they wouldn't be offering their GM, Kyle Dubas, a new deal either. Ryan Hardy, the assistant general manager of minor league operations, had this to say: "I would like to extend our club's sincere thanks to our coaching staff for their commitment and contribution to the organisation. Our club wishes Greg, AJ, John and their families all the best moving forward." We're not really sure how we feel about this one, to be honest. On one hand, the team probably should have achieved more than it has considering the talent that it had, but it was also trending in a very positive direction prior to losing some of the key players as part of Maple Leaf trades. Let's take a look at how Moore has done in his tenure as the head coach. Excluding his first half season, which was always bound to be difficult, and the COVID-shortened 2020-21 season, we'll take a look at how we thought he did in the 21-22 and the 22-23 season. The 21-22 season didn't really have the most talented Marlies roster ever, but they should have had enough to make the playoffs. There's the usual injury issues that plague the team, but that plagues all teams. The Marlies did suffer a lot from goalie injuries though and unavailability, so we do have to take that into account. But even with that, this team should have made the playoffs. Although the Marlies did miss out on the expanded playoffs with a heartbreaking final day loss away to Belleville, we were actually at that game as part of the Marlies season ticket holders road trip. Truly devastating. The signs were there though for hope. The likes of Mark Johnstone, Matteo Petronero, Graham Slaggart, Max Ellis, Noel Hoffenmeyer, Pontus Holmberg, Ryan Chizowski, Matthew Hellickson, Philippe Kral, Mark Hollowell, Stemidera Gachinsev, Bobby McMahon and Alex Steves would all play a part that year and would then go on to be major contributors to the Marlies the following year. And with Moore's history of success in youth/rookie development in the USA Hockey National Dev Program and with the USHL Chicago Steel, where he coached Mark Johnstone, things were not all doom and gloom, although at the time, coming home from the bus from Belleville, it certainly felt like it. The poor regular season and especially that final day loss to Belleville, in which the team didn't really show much fight, apart from Rich Clune, who literally had a fight in the first few minutes, had many people wondering, both online and on the bus back to Toronto, if Gregg Moore was the right man for the job. Now, he wasn't fired after that season, but that off-season, the retirement of long-term Marley and the then captain Rich Clune certainly didn't help the feeling that Moore was coaching for his job in the 22-23 season. So heading into the 22-23 season, a lot of Marlies fans, me included, were quietly optimistic that we could make the playoffs. Although the team did lose their two highest point scorers in Brett Seeney, who signed with the Chicago Blackhawks organisation, and Joey Duzak, who went to the KHL, along with the enigmatic Josh Ho-Sang. The continued development of Nick Robertson, Steves, Anderson, McMahon, SDA, coupled with the addition of the then Belleville captain Logan Shaw and seasoned NHL Adam Gaudette, eased a lot of their concern and was cause for some of that quiet optimism. The season could hardly have gotten off to a better start. They won 11 of their first 14 games and had one of, if not the best power play in the whole league. To continue a point we made in our last video, the goaltending at this point of the season was absolutely incredible and perhaps far better than it probably should have been. Joseph Wall started the season 12-0 and Keith Petruzzelli started the season 6-0. And when things are going well for a team like it was at the early part of the season for the Marlies, a lot of people overlook their shortcomings. The 5-on-5 play was incredibly worrying, but they always had the power play unit and the goalies to bail them out. There were some strange line combos as well throughout the year, and despite losing players to the usual trades and injuries, it felt like Moore never really had his mind made up on what his best line combinations were. With first place in the North Division already secured, the Marlies seemed to just fall straight off a cliff and ended the season with a 2-8 record and seemed to be very low on confidence, but more worryingly, of ideas. Heading into the last 5 games of the regular season and with the Marlies clearly in a funk, Moore wasn't really interested in blowing up his line changes or trying anything too drastic, which he probably should have done. Something should have happened before we entered the playoffs. As for in the actual playoffs themselves, what can we say? The Marlies beat Utica 3-1, having won 2 games in Utica, but I'm not sure that was down to coaching. That could have just been the players and their muscle memory and their determination, doggedness, just to get over the line. And in fairness, this Utica team wasn't really anything to write home about. Then in the North Division finals against Rochester, Moore was outcoached at every single turn, every single shift, every single line change, everything. He just seemed unwilling to change things at that stage of the season. And heading into a North Division finals, you gotta be willing to change. You gotta be agile, you gotta be thinking on your feet and constantly changing things. Maybe this embarrassing 3-0 defeat to the Americans was the final straw. Who knows? Overall, we would give Moore a C+. He did a good job without being great, but he also wasn't the worst coach in the league by any stretch of the imagination. He was selected to coach the All-Star game after all. Perhaps if the pandemic didn't hit, he could have had left a greater imprint on this team. But with the high player turnover in the American League, and as we already said, a coach needs to be agile, but they also need to be able to adjust the system to fit the players at their disposal, or just the players to fit the system. And this was ultimately his downfall, we believe. He just couldn't adapt quickly enough to the high player turnover and the style of play in the American League. On a more personal note, we've actually met Greg a few times and he's a great ambassador for the club. He took time to talk to my kids, talk hockey, and even told them to make sure that they do their homework every night, which they still don't, by the way. As a head coach, he said all the right things when being interviewed by the media and came across as a very likeable and knowledgeable coach. And we're sure that he'll be snapped up very soon. Maybe not in the AHL just yet, but we'd love to see him back in the league soon. Moving on to AJ and John Snowden. We're not too shocked to see AJ go. He has been with the team since the 2015-2016 season, and sometimes the team just needs a new voice. Things can get a little bit stale when you hear the same voice year after year, so we're sad to see him go, but we're not too shocked. However, we are a little bit more shocked with the Marlies parting ways with John Snowden. When he was brought up from the Newfoundland Growlers, where he coached them to a Kelly Cup in 2019, I felt like he was being groomed to take over as head coach. I guess the organisation didn't like what they saw, but that's very surprising to us considering Snowden's pedigree and his history with a lot of these players. You have to remember, a lot of these players won a Kelly Cup with Snowden as their head coach with the Growlers, and our thinking was that he would take over after gaining experience in the league and try to replicate that success. So, with Snowden apparently out of the picture, we would love to see Ottawa 67's coach Dave Cameron given the chance to coach the team. He recently won OHL Coach of the Year and does have experience in both the AHL and the Maple Leaf organisation as a whole. Although, his 1 year as assistant coach with the then St. John's Maple Leafs was not exactly amazing. The team had a league worst 23-45-8-4 record. Wow. He does have NHL level experience, having been both an assistant and then a head coach for the Ottawa Senators and an assistant coach on the Calgary Flames. He has also coached at junior international level with Team Canada, and it appears that he's better suited to working with younger developing players as opposed to fully fledged NHLers. So with all this experience since his last time in the league, he could be a great fit for the Marlies, who do have a lot of rookies and youngsters, and they're a team that should be competing for Calder Cups most years. Let us know what you think of Moore and his assistants not being renewed for another year, and who you would like to see given the job. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.